January and February, people are going to come down here. So will we become a Springfield? No. Could we become more of a Branson? Possibly. But again, Branson had the growth to move and get bigger, and we really don't. So.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Take on the Lake. I'm Nathan Bechtold. Thanks so much for joining us. Today in the studio, we have Osage Beach Mayor Micheal Harmison. Mayor Harmison is a businessman and a mayor, so he juggles a lot, and he made some time to come by the studio today. I had been meaning to have him on for quite a while just to talk about the stuff that's happening in Osage Beach, because there's a lot of stuff, and there's a handful of people that get some unique insight into those things, and the person who's in the role of mayor is one of those people. So, Mayor Harmison, thanks for coming on.
No, my pleasure.
Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
I guess I'll just start by saying, what have you been working on lately in the city? Like, what's been taking up the large? If your time is a big pie chart, like what takes up the big chunks on that pie chart these days as mayor?
That answer is pretty easy. Right now, it's on the development of the mall. And as you know, the developers would like to bring in Bass Pro. I was very fortunate last summer to get a call from Johnny Morris saying, hey, we're looking forward to coming to Osage Beach and appreciate everything you've done to bring us there. And the developers have now submitted a TIF application, and we review that. We have third-party financial advisors that take a deep dive into the financial aspects of it. We see if it makes sense for the city. And, we've had executive sessions for legal, talking with the developers, looking at the layout. And so to answer the question is what's been taking most of my time, that's been the mall.
Okay. How do you feel about it overall? I mean, I know that there's a level of, difficulty in talking about details, right. And obviously everybody wants it to go great. I think literally 100% of people want that project to go great, and then whatever that means
Absolutely.
Is kind of to be determined. But how do you feel about it overall?
I'm skeptical in some aspects, some of the dollar amounts, but I mean, I'm for this program. I talk to the developers on a regular basis. We have behind closed doors executive sessions where we're as transparent as we can be. Sometimes when they have not Bass Pro has announced that they're coming, but then you have 7 junior anchors and they'll have letters of intent. So you might hear people say LOIs, and a lot of times they cannot divulge who they are. But also
about yes,
but also optimistic because
on the numbers. But what do you say? What you mean? I'm sorry about skeptical about numbers. Like they say we think it'll bring in this revenue, and you're like, I don't know where you got that, or what do you mean? Just so I know what you. Or, so we're clear on what you mean by that.
Here's what I always tell people. I like to dumb things down so I can explain to somebody else. And I think it's just like any other negotiation. You have the first party that submits what they want, and they're going to ask for everything.
Sure.
And then you have the second party that's going to submit the lowest amount. And then somewhere you normally meet in the middle. Well, the first ask is pretty good ask.
Sure.
And so we need to go back and look at the numbers and say, well, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense. Let our legal department and our financial advisors take a look at it. So we're in that position right now. We've asked for some more information, but I've told Chris Foster and his whole development group I'm definitely for this, just like everybody else. And I want the board to be able to be behind this 100%, and I want the citizens to not only be behind the fact that we want a Bass Pro and the mall to redevelop, but I also want them to understand the numbers, and so that they can see that the numbers make sense, and we're getting closer.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Because obviously there's a project amount, like estimated, which, man, those are always fun, right? I mean, we've seen that with the Oasis, where it was like, I mean, when they announced it, I think it was $350 million,
Correct.
And now we're talking 500, right?
Yeah, 356 to almost $500 million.
Of course, that was an interesting time too, and materials and all sort of tariffs, and I mean, I talked with Jeff Tegedoff about on that one, even just things like how tariffs potentially impact some things they pre-bought. But anyways, there's a lot of unknowns. That was my point in a project like that. But these guys for the mall, Foster and this other development group, remind me the name of the development outfit. Or,
Greg, I can't remember the name of it, but
I've
they're
picked
out
on
of
the spot
they're out of
there,
Kansas
sorry.
City.
Yeah.
And see, that's the difference this time than last time, because last time the mall was not purchased from Simon, who owned it. The mall's been purchased.
It was under contract, contingent on some things working out, but in this case, yeah,
the mall
bought
sold.
it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So and Chris,
And that shows a level of commitment.
It does. It does. So it's different than it was 4 years ago. And one thing the city has been real clear about, we need it to make sense, but they need a TIF, tax increment financing is what they're asking for. But a lot of times the board has made it very clear that they don't want to use that money to buy them all. They want that money to be used to reimburse for infrastructure that they created by doing that. So it's a pay-as-you-go rather than pay up front.
Right. So the amount that they're projecting on total investment, in other words, build cost, is 600 something.
650.
650. And the amount they're wanting in total, which not all this comes from the city, because they're also planning on some of it from
Super TIF.
Super TIF, state level stuff, and then some of it, which I guess the city still has some say in this, but even like the special entertainment district and some things that are not necessary. Those aren't really, I mean, at least you could correct me if I'm wrong, but from my perspective, those aren't things that are really related to the city in any way other than they're part of the overall funding package. But like they want to draw an entertainment district in there. They already have those 2 hotels. We kind of released that map several weeks ago where there would be a special tax just in there. And that's part of that 100. I forget the number there. I did a whole episode on it, and I don't have them on the top of my head.
It's about
something million.
It's about 150.
150 million.
Approximately.
They're saying this is the total tax incentive package. And I have tried to spend a lot of time because I think it's important that people understand what that is and what that's not. Because you just see lots of people go, that's my tax dollars. And it's like, well, actually, no, it really isn't. And also, like, especially the entertainment district part and some of those, like, that's only your tax dollars if you shop there and you pay the additional. I mean, the same thing at Pruitt's Point or Eagles Landing, some of those. So anyways, all that to say, that's that whole package. So when you look at those numbers, or you can say what you want. It looked like you had something you wanted to say to that, but then
No, I was just one of the things that I find interesting in our area down here is, by far we're a rate-leaning community, county, city, whatever, and a lot of people support Trump, which I do too. And one of the things that's been frustrating is some of the TIFs or Chapter 100s, basically rebates, have been based on his philosophy in New York. If you look at New York, and if you've ever read his book, The Art of the Deal.
I've not, but I've been told I should.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
I've been told it's an insight into a lot of what he does.
It is his week, so but then also what he does. In New York, he revitalized that city, and he is the architect of tax increment financing and rebates. I mean, he was the one that, but for some of the tax dollars on what he created goes not existing tax dollars. They don't take your tax dollars and say this is a great idea, so we're going to take your tax dollars and put it to doing this.
Yeah, and that's a good clarification.
Right. He is developing something. He developed many things up in New York, and he said rather than everybody getting 100% of the taxes of stuff I just created for a period of a certain number of years, I'll give you half of that. The other half, I'm going to go back to the infrastructure because I spent that out of my own pocket, develop that. And very similar to pay as you go. So it's not taxing people. They're not, and that's the board.
It's not like people see now they are paying some more taxes on any particular thing that they would normally have been buying, and that goes straight to the developer's pockets. It's like the increase in revenue generated because of the development. Partly, or in some case, all the increase, or all the increase for some time and then it tapers off, or some version of that goes to paying off the infrastructure.
And those tax dollars would not be there but for the development of that property.
Right. That's the idea, I know, behind the TIF.
Right. Yeah. And so the city's negotiating right now. April 1st right now is the schedule for the public hearing and the first TIF commission. At the public hearing, it's when people can come in and they speak their piece, why they're for or against this program. The TIF commission will meet, and then they'll vote either in favor of or decline moving forward to the alderman. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter. They can still move to the alderman, and then the aldermen need to choose. But right now, the city has done a really good job of using the developer's money. They have to pay, for lack of a better word, a deposit. I won't talk numbers, but let's say this is a huge project. They need to give the city $50,000 Those numbers mean nothing, but we used those dollars to hire a third-party financial advisors. In this case, too, attorneys, advisors saying, all right, here's what they want to do. Does it make sense? So the city has spent a lot of time, a lot of money, of the developer's money, saying to the third-party advisors, does this make sense to the city? And we're in the process of doing that right now. But no, I'm very much for this project. I meet and talk with the developers on a regular basis. Back to your question, what's been taking the majority of my time? And it's not just sitting behind the desk at City Hall. It's standing on the deck on a Sunday afternoon talking to the developers. It's at the grocery store and somebody says, hey, I got a question about the mall. And but that's probably the number one thing taking my time and doing my best to move it forward.
Yeah. Well, I think, man, it's certainly, I think, among the most interesting stories happening just broadly, like at people's interest in Osage Beach, or
it
maybe
is.
even at the lake. Really.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out to people, this process is difficult for a reason. Fiduciary responsibilities gets thrown a lot, but the board really takes that to heart, and I take that to heart. These are the taxpayers' dollars, and it's going to be the taxpayers' revenue. But we do as much as we can to make sure it makes sense. So we're still negotiating. Hope it works to the best, and I'll do my best to keep moving it forward in a positive way.
Great. So yeah, one follow-up question on that,
Sure.
because this is the one I was thinking of asking a minute ago. What are the kinds of things, you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty on this, but that the city goes, okay, this would put us at a little too much risk as a city? Or how does the city gauge what is an appropriate amount of, stuff within that TIF to allow? And I don't even know, because, previously there were a whole lot of debate about bonds, and does that really put the city at jeopardy? The city's not on the hook for bonds, but it uses its bonding ability to help a developer get a lower rate in certain TIF packages. So is that, can the city do that infinitely almost, or is there a limit to that? You know what I mean? That's a lot of kind of specific questions, but what I mean is, how does the city decide? Is there a matrix that you use to go, that's an acceptable amount of stuff, and that doesn't put us really at any meaningful risk as a city, but this up here, no, we can't do that because that's too much risk for,
Right.
How do you decide that?
No, good question. We actually, anybody can go to our Osage Beach website, but we have a TIF policy that they can go look at. There's a series of about 18 questions that developers need to answer. We were actually in the middle of revising that after the Oasis, but we knew that this one was coming down the pipe, so we didn't want to change things, so it looked like we were changing it from one developer to the other. But generally, there's a percentage of what the TIF can be, the tax increment financing, based on the entire project as a whole.
Like the proportion of the TIF
Correct.
to the project.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's a policy, not that the board cannot deviate from the policy, but it gives them a guide to shoot for. So if all of a sudden, if it's a 20% possible, and that's a pretty accurate number, 20% possible TIF, and the developer comes in at 23, then the board takes a look at it and says, all right, well, it's a little higher than our policy, but let's take a look at it, see if it makes sense. So we have our own policies. We have our third-party advisors, and then there's some state statutes. There's it needs to be blighted. That's been a big controversy.
Yep.
Blighted basically means it's deteriorated to the point where it needs some assistance. What you and I may think of blight is a little different than the state definition.
Right.
There's been some property that I know that's created some concerns that that's not really blighted because it's right on their waterfront, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But the attorneys can say, yeah, it's blighted, when you and I may say it's not. And then the developers can use that as a possibility. So, yeah, we have rules and regulations.
I've seen less argument about the outlet mall, frankly.
Absolutely.
I think most folks.
Nobody
we read a piece
disagrees.
a while back that
Yep,
had a lot of the photos that actually Foster and a prior group, I
Right.
think, had taken as evidence of blight.
correct.
And it was like, whoa.
Yeah, there's no question
There's
it's
some
blighted.
problems there. Yeah.
And you need to understand, it's interesting too. And 5 years ago, if you asked me anything about a TIF, I wouldn't have been able to tell you what it's all about, Nathan. But one of the big things is you'll hear, and it's actually a legal term, but for. And the but for clause is basically that project would not succeed, be profitable for the developer but for. And even at the but for clause, there's a percentage of how much that the developers can profit. Now, if they come in and say, we would not be able to do this project at a profit but for a TIF, Then they put in clawbacks. The clawbacks basically mean, all right, let's say 2 years down the road, they've fully exceeded, and you say, wait a minute, you guys are so profitable, you didn't need this. Well, then the clawbacks can grab some of that tax money that was given.
Really?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I knew about the but-for, and I knew that basically because I saw this on at least some summary I was reading of the outlet mall proposal was they go, okay, without the TIF, incentive, the whole package that we're proposing, the project would be at like a negative 0.5% return on investment after X years. But with this, the project would be at a 6-something%.
Right.
I'm messing those numbers up.
Right, yeah.
But that's the argument they have to make, basically, to go, this is what takes it from being a non-viable project, nobody would ever do this would literally be a waste of money, to, hey, this is a reasonable return on investment, and so we can actually get funding to do it based on our projections.
And using your numbers, if that turns into a 10% profit, then they're going to say, all right, you got a 4% more, and you got some sort of rebate, so we're going to take some of that back.
I see, and that's all negotiated in this process, basically.
Oh, the paperwork is thick, and again, it's attorneys that do this for a living, and the city hires their attorneys, which keeps the city at our best interest, and the developers hire their attorney. And like I said, always start just whether you're selling an old baseball glove at your garage sale, and I want $20 for it, I'll give you 2, and that's where you start, and you reach normally somewhere in the middle.
Okay, good. Well, that's a good summary. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Keep us posted on what's going on.
That's what's been taking the majority of my time.
And the majority of our time sitting right here. So
Yes, exactly.
There's a lot to talk about. This is good. Okay, next one. How about some of the problems the city's facing right now? Those are not always fun to talk about, but what do you see as kind of top 2 or 3 or something big challenges?
Yeah, I ran 4 years ago because I saw a problem with the city, and I saw a problem with my business. And I have the luxury now of seeing both sides. Some of it was valid, some of it wasn't. Customer service is huge to me. One of the problems we've been experiencing that everybody knows that there will be the sewer smell. And when I came on board 4 years ago, it was a problem. We at the time had just gotten rid of a public works director. We had an assistant city administrator that took over the public works director job, and then we had somebody else come in. And we have for years just being reactive. You got a sewer smell, take care of it. We have the pumps that went out, and there's supposed to be 3 in that hole, 1 for extra. There's only 2. If that one goes out, we're in a lot of problems. And anyway, so it was about a year and a half ago that we finally got rid of the other public works director. And one of the things as mayor is you appoint, we decide we're going to have a brand new public works director. And we're going to spend the money in finding somebody, and it's an appointed position. And we received several applications, went through the interview process, and there was one that just rose to the top, and that's Jeff Fisher. He was a public works director in Green Valley, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas. I met with him several times, and he was my guy. And I told him, Jeff, number 1, sewer smell. And he came on board about last Memorial Day. And one of the problems we've had in the past, and it's been years, they haven't really identified the problem. They kept trying to mask the sewer smell rather than take care of the sewer smell.
Ozone thing or different. Yeah, I remember all that.
Yep. And years ago, this is before me, they spent $250,000 a year and put in basically stuff to make it smell better. Jeff came in, and we have a very good sewer department that was just needing some direction and leadership and the support of myself and the board to spend the money to do the things they need to do. And so they've identified the problem. I was one of the biggest callers of Jeff for the first several months because I lived down Passover. Every morning back behind Andy's, I'd call him at 6:30 in the morning, Jeff, there's sewer smell. What's going on? Well, we started incorporating the microscopic bugs. The bugs not only eat the sewage, but they also clean the pipes, and they've been working on that. So Jeff has taken a proactive approach. The board within the last year has allowed them to spend the money to get the equipment, become automized, and I've not called him for about 3 weeks now, and he's identified the problem. If you go to our city website and Facebook page,
is he the one that's been doing the Facebook
videos? Yes,
those are pretty interesting. I mean,
they are awesome.
Most folks don't imagine wanting to watch a video talking about sewer, but I think he did a pretty good job of explaining
exactly
what's going on there and like what he's trying to do.
So for the first time,
we actually have a piece. Maybe by the time this episode is out, we will have published that where we kind of broke that down a little bit because that seemed like a different approach.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, he gave the direction, but our public works team is great. I tell it, go to our city website. The nice thing about it is you've got to identify the problem.
Right.
You can't just keep trying to mask the problem. And they're learning with the bugs too. The bugs that they used to, all right, the bugs are going to take care of the problem. Well, it's not just the bugs, but it's the flow. And if you ever have a home that you're gone for months and you come back and it smells septic, that's because the water's been sitting in there.
Right.
And so they've learned with the bugs. It used to be, if we're going to have a slow weekend, let's don't put as many bugs because it's a slow weekend. If it's a July 4th weekend, put more bugs. But what they found out is even with the smaller weekends, slower weekends, you need things flowing. So they're learning to adjust the bugs. We're becoming automized. And it's just, I'm very pleased. And another thing that I told the staff a long time ago is a lot of times I'd call them in the morning and say, Jeff, what's going on? And well, we had to open the system up, meaning they literally had to open up,
Right.
go down, fix something. There's going to be a little bit of smell. I said, you know what? We need to tell people that then. Because why is there sewer smell?
Oh, yeah. And then there was a press release in the last week or two.
Right.
Like, hey, we're going to be working on stuff. It's going to stink.
So we have a brand new information specialist and a marketing person. And so if they do need to open it up, now we're being proactive, saying, by the way, folks, the next day or so you might smell something, and here's why.
Okay. Any one or two other problems, challenges?
Yeah. Another challenge, and you probably saw it too, is our police department. They're falling behind in pay from the surrounding areas. Here, a 3 months ago, there was talk about doing a sales tax increase in order to get the police staff up. I met with the staff and the police, and we just finished our budget process, and we said, all right, we did not include it in there, and now is not the time for. I mean, we've got.
Yeah, we covered that a little bit.
Yeah, we've got.
Tabled and
we
said,
do
hey,
not need another increase. We do not need another increase in sewer and water. We've had that, so we need to take another look at our staffings. We need to take a look at where we are. We don't need to be the most expensive. We don't need to be the cheapest. But our police force is phenomenal, and we want to keep them and retain them.
Sure.
And so that's one of the challenges we have ahead of us.
Okay.
And the other challenge, I guess, and this is a tough one, Nathan, is because a lot of times you hear people that we're not being transparent, and that word transparent gets thrown around a lot. And from day one, my phone's been available. It sounds like Mayor just saying, "Hey, call me anytime," but we're out there on social media. We do. Our meetings are all published on Facebook and their local radio. I go on a radio every Monday, Mayor Monday. I just heard earlier this morning, when somebody runs for office, the first thing they want to do is they talk about the bad things that are going on, and they talk about not being transparent. Our budget process, we have budget meetings. They're all open to the public. We post them on Facebook. We invite people to come in. We have 4 or 5 budget meetings. We sit down on the dais. We talk about the budget. And our finance person just received an award last night during our meeting. 26 years that she received the budget award. At the city level, our budget is published. It's for everybody to see. You can literally tell where every dollar of the city, where it received, where it's spent. And so one of the problems that we have, I see, to answer the question is, in addition to everything else we're doing, how do we get that out there so that it does not look like we're not being transparent?
Right. How have you answered that so far?
I don't have an answer other than with social media. We're on meetings. We're talking here. I'm talking here.
Sure.
Call me anytime, because I'm all about, if there's a problem, pick up the phone and call me. My number's right there on the website. I'll meet with you for coffee.
Okay.
So that's a few of the things that we still would like to work on.
What about the airport situation?
Yeah, interesting. We have a town of about 5,000 people with 2 airports. One we own, one we lease. Grand Glaize Bridge we own right there in Osage Beach. And, of course, Leasey Fine is one we lease, and we lease it for like $1
right,
a year.
yeah, because of this agreement with Parks or Department of Natural Resources.
Right.
And that's the bigger one, and that's the one
is.
that's, I think, most that I hear in the pilots, people that fly,
Correct.
say that one they feel like has the more long-term potential to be an actual kind of hub at the lake.
Absolutely, right. Absolutely. Yeah, we've been doing what's called Morning Cup of Coffee, and a couple of months ago we did one with the mayor. We had several pilots there, and I asked them, "What's your thoughts on it?" The Grand Glaize Airport, the one in Osage Beach, is not revenue generating, and sometimes it operates at a loss. But you have to understand, since we own the airport, we're on a 90-10 policy with the FAA, so 90% of the airport for grants and things like that are paid for by the federal government. We have 10%.
It's like a rural airport program or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's very well used. We're limited for hangars. Hangars are very revenue producing, but we don't have a lot of space there. We've been looking at bringing more hangars in, but a lot of people say we can't get rid of that because we use it all the time. But then on the other side, you have people saying, hey, we've got another airport just outside of town, and we've got all this property where the Grand Glaize Airport is. Why don't we get rid of that airport and use it for our own benefit, whether it's for housing, Grand Glaize.
Get rid of Grand Glaize.
Yeah,
that's what some people have proposed, and just lean on leasey fine.
Yeah, I mean that's been what some people have proposed, and then we deep dive into that, and you find out that technically, if you do that, then all those grants that you receive for all those years, you would have to pay back. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, interesting.
So
you have to pay them back if you close the
well,
airport?
that's what some have said. Now you look into that. There's some legal maneuverability in there where maybe you could transfer that to another airport, possibly. So we're looking at both aspects with the DNR owning the property at the Leasey Fine Airport. We've been in negotiations for last couple of years. They would like us to take that airport over. They don't want to be in the airport business.
Right.
The difficulty the city has right now is we don't want to take on another sewage system.
Right.
And that's what they want us to take on.
Yeah, I know that's all been kind of in that negotiation.
Yeah, and we met with Representative Vernetti and Representative Mayhew, and they've been great and great to work with. They're trying to be the liaison between the two. And so we're still working. We just need to figure that out. I mean,
It just seems like there surely is just a dollar amount. I mean, I know nobody has unlimited cash reserves, but it's like even if that sewer system is a liability for the city, it's like, well, assign a dollar value to that liability over an X year period, and then if Leasey Fine is actually viable. I mean, is there actually a path to Leasey Fine being a really positive revenue generating
absolutely
asset?
Absolutely. I mean, and the hangars, bringing in more people, you could bring in charter planes.
Yeah. So I just mean, if you draw a 10-year arc and you go, the sewer thing's a liability, but it's this amount of liability, and within 10 years we think that'll be offset by whatever we develop out at Leasey Fine.
And that's exactly what we're in the middle of. And then you got to figure too is this, that's 15 minutes out there. And so if you have one of those blinking lights at 8 o'clock in the morning and you have another blinking light in Osage Beach and you need to get out there in 15 minutes, that's another lot of sewer pipe. It's a lot of line. It's a lot of extra. We have limited trucks that can be in two places at once, and that's where it comes back to the budget. You say, okay, the first thing is a lot of people will say that's, hey, well, we need to raise the police salary. We need to do this. Well, okay, well, then that takes away from someplace else. So that all goes into the mix. That all goes into.
You can't just throw a 0.5-cent sales tax out there for every single new thing you need because people don't want that.
Exactly.
None of us really want that.
Yeah, and that's where it's real important. The behind the computer complaining on Facebook just doesn't get the job done. Mm-hmm. If you have a viable concern or a suggestion, we certainly want to hear from you. And generally, the complaints out there, there's an answer. Maybe it's not something you like, but if we're not asked the question, then we can't answer it.
Right. Okay. Good. That's helpful. What's something that is happening in the city that you wish more people knew about?
Well, for sure, the sewer system. How we have identified the problem, and right now we're doing a study that should be out in June or July to find out a dollar amount. People need to understand that we have a joint sewer board between Osage Beach and Lake Ozark, and it's 5 miles from the farthest edge of town to the sewer treatment plant. 5 miles, and that pipe has been in the ground for quite a while. Mm-hmm. So recently they've been going at strategically opening up those pipes to take a look at them. We're going to get a dollar amount to say whether it's 50,000, 500,000, or 5 million, 10 million, whatever, what it will take in order to do that. And I just want people to know that the Public Works team is on it. We're going to come up with a dollar amount. And we also see in probably 10 years or so needing another water tower. And we have plenty of wells, just another water tower on the Osage Beach side. Or excuse me, on like, if you think down by Harmony's Cheese Store, that side of the lake. Sorry, I threw in a little plug. But so I want the city people to know that, but I also want them to know how much we're doing with our parks. One of the things I ran on too was pro-family things to do for people that live here. A lot of times people will say it's just tourism driven. Well, tourists make us a lot of money, but we also, as a city, one of the things that our budget takes care of is local entertainment for locals. And our parks director has done a great job. We have ball fields down there. We have a new bark park, dog park. Some people don't even realize that we have lake access through our park.
Right.
All the way down.
It was a long time before I realized that.
Yeah,
actually.
And right now this summer we've actually had a dock company that came in. They said they would like to put in a dock, possibly even a marina back there, have a nice dock so the kids can walk on there and fish out of the on the dock. I got a hold of Bob May with the Water Safety Council. They volunteered to put life vests back there. We're going to do canoe rentals, kayak rentals. We also have back there a sand volleyball court, a pond. So I just want people to know that our parks is doing phenomenal. We have a brand new playground equipment that literally is going to be installed next week. And so our parks is
at City Park?
At Peanic Park.
At Peanic, okay.
Brand new, and we're gonna.
I live over near there, so I drive past that, taking my son over to baseball practice at Osage or whatever regularly. So I've been seeing it a lot. There's been a lot of earth moving over there, and all kinds of things happening.
Yeah,
so what are we looking at there? I know there's a splash pad long-term planned, and then so what's going up first is the
playground,
the big playground thing.
The playground's here. They're doing the landscape now. It'll go up starting next week. So it'll be up and running soon.
Okay.
And then gazebo, splash pad, and those are all free to citizens.
Is that splash pad expected this summer?
Next summer.
Next summer. Okay, 27. But the playground is this spring.
Oh yeah,
basically.
within a couple months. Okay. And then also at the city park, we have frisbee golf. I don't know if you're into that or not.
I wish I had more time for it. I love some disc golf.
Yeah. Disc golf. There you go. Yeah. Instead of frisbee golf.
That's at City Park.
Oh yeah.
I don't think I even knew there was a disc golf course.
Right now they have 5 of the 9 holes. The other 4 will be up and running soon. And then through Magic Dragon Trails, we have with DNR Magic Dragon Trails City Park, we have a new walkway we're doing. Just last night at our board meeting, we approved first reading. We have somebody coming and take over the concessions at City Park.
Okay.
So that'll free up some of the park people time to do more. And just so much going on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, housing. You say, what else I want people to know? We have more housing coming in.
Oh, yeah?
Correct. Just as of last week, we're going to have a planning and zoning meeting here soon, but we have 2 different locations of 115 more duplexes and triplexes. Tegetoff's development, the Sycamore Creek, there's 163 units there. One thing I've been working on for the last several years is a grocery store on the other side of the bridge. When Woods went out, we did a rooftop study a couple of years ago, and rooftop study is literally whether the experts think that we could manage another grocery store, and we were really close a couple of years ago. So I'm really excited with the Rick Ellerman development property. You've got the Sycamore Creek. You've got these other 2. I'm hoping we're getting close to that rooftop study so we can bring in another grocery store on that side.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Yeah, where are those? I mean, how much are you able to say about those? Because I didn't know anything about those.
One's
triplexes. What's going on there?
One's back behind Deerberg's, and there's another one down 42.
Okay.
Yeah, and then Rick Ellerman's development. I don't know if you know anything about that or not, but it's by the airport. But
the cottages at Lions Way.
Yes,
I think is the name of it.
Lions,
we did a little bit of coverage.
Yes, I toured those a few weeks ago, and it's I think it's 33 different units, 2-bedroom.
I love what he did there. I think
yeah.
I would love to see more people do that. I think there's a long runway for doing those kinds of things. I mean, provided they're profitable, which presumably he figured out a profit model there. I think that's a great way to navigate housing that, I mean, apartments and duplexes are great too. And then I like what he did there because it's a little bit of a different feel as well. So
It's like a little community.
yeah, it
is.
does. It does.
And he
feel
wants
like
to do others around Osage Beach. And, and a lot of times the first thing they'll say, well, is it low income? Well, all right. To coin Jeff Tegetow's phrase, it's the missing middle. You have your high income and low income right in the middle. But whether it's Rick Elliman's place or whether it's Sycamore Creek apartment, you're talking about $1,400, $1,500 a month. And that sounds horrible. But then you think, you know what, you've got all your appliances are covered. And when you're talking about Sycamore Creek, you have your own dog park, you have your own swimming pool, you have your own athletic workout room. And you get 2 teachers, 2 people that work at a local restaurant. They split it $750 a week, a month. That's not too bad.
Yeah, and I think again, for folks that just want to say we need housing at this other price point, a lot of times my response is, well, if that was a profitable thing to build, people would probably be building it. Like it's difficult to do that. The only time you ever see new housing at a really low price point happen is when it's got part federal government
Correct.
subsidying or, like the rent help, all that kind of, I don't even know what these things are called. But when you see that, almost never is anybody going to be building new housing that is, like works for one person making minimum wage or just above it to just go rent and they're in some brand new unit. Like I don't even think that that's an economically viable thing. So, but what all these missing middle, which is an interesting term, kind of housing things do is they add inventory to the market.
Correct.
And again, supply and demand is a real thing. And so my projection is that as inventory gets added to the market, you'll see some people move in from out of town. I mean, I know Jeff Tegetow's even told me some of the people that are at Sycamore Creek have moved in from out of town. All kinds of things happen.
Correct.
But when you add inventory, pricing adjusts across the market. And so the lowest income housing is not, again, going to be the brand new, nice, fancy units. It's going to be probably older, a little bit more gently used or whatever.
Correct, yeah.
But the point is that inventory, like, openings happen in different levels of that inventory. That's my thought, at least. So when you create more inventory, you create more options for people that can move up into something that they could have afforded but wasn't even around before that, and then that opens up something that's cheaper for, you know what I mean? So I think overall, that I think is how that kind of thing works. And it's not like it's some grand coordinated scheme where you have like one master developer in the entire region who says, I'm only going to develop stuff for the wealthy, or something. It's way more organic because that's how markets tend to work, And so anyways, there's my monologue on that. But whenever I see that, I generally am encouraged when I see any new housing that is either smaller houses that are people can buy or rental type situations, because I think that overall is going to help that challenge the lake faces. There's my thought.
No, I agree. 2 things I have to say about that. One is property value. It is really tough with the property value being so expensive down here to tell somebody that has 5 acres for sale for however many millions of dollars, saying, well, you know what, why don't you turn that into housing, when they're waiting for a developer to come in and say, no, I want to turn that into a multiplex entertainment center. And so property value. The other thing that housing is a concern, going back to one of your other questions, and we have more housing coming in. But what I've said too, you take in Eldon, the Quaker plant, they have close to 1,000 employees now, huge. I think what people are starting to figure out here is at the lake, as we become a year-round destination, not just a Labor Day to Memorial Day tourist place, that people are figuring out that we have good-paying jobs here. There's going to be some good-paying jobs at the Oasis, at the mall, or whatever. And if you talk to anybody that lives in Kansas City or Des Moines or St. Louis, and that you think of that traffic in the mornings and at night, and you ask them, and say, how far away in miles do you live from where you work? And they'll say, about 10 miles. How long does it take you to get there? About 45 minutes to an hour. Well, if you take 45 minutes to an hour at 60 miles per hour, from Osage Beach. I mean, you bring in Raleigh, you bring in Lebanon, you bring Jeff City, and they found out the same thing at Quaker Plant is they were able to bring in people, and they may have a
for sales and beyond. Even that
you may have a 30,
living.
45-minute drive home, but you know what? I remember at the cheese store, one of the first years I was trying to get somebody, they lived all the way over into Sunrise Beach, and they didn't want to make that long drive. And I think people are figuring out that if they come over here for a good paying job, 30 minutes to 45 minutes, they're back home, and so they'll drive.
At least it's a pretty drive.
Yeah,
you got a lake. You got a lake on one side of you, or rolling hills, or whatever.
And with the jobs that pay more, they're having one job rather than two.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Interesting. So let's talk about, you were mentioning parks a little bit, mentioned baseball a little bit. I'm a baseball fan.
Yeah,
My son's a freshman. He's going to be pitching for Osage this year for their JV team.
Nice.
And that's pretty cool. And but let's talk like the sports study that the city did, because that one, actually, baseball pun or baseball term here, that one came out of left field a little bit for me because I didn't know that was even being considered. When I saw that, we did a little bit of coverage on that. I actually don't think we've given the latest update was because the first round of that info, I believe, came back from the sports study people,
Correct.
right? The city has talked about some of that. So we'll just go a few questions about that. Cost, I think it was being done in a two-phase kind of thing. The ultimate cost was going to be, was it $70,000?
Pretty close to it. I believe it was the first of the two phases. And if you don't mind, I'll go back a little bit. What this is, and we've been talking about it for quite a while, some sort of complex here where we could bring people year-round, whether it's an indoor facility, whether you have, 10 basketball courts, you can bring in boat shows, you could bring in FFA conventions, you could bring in, you name it, but a facility where people could literally use it as an event center, a multi-level event center. And so everybody thinks about all the development we have here with the Oasis and the Marriott and the mall, everything coming in here, but it'd be nice to have bringing people in a centralized location, Osage Beach, unlike Kansas City or Des Moines, whatever. We're right here in the middle of the state. We don't have anything like that. And if you remember a few years ago, there was a soccer complex sales tax that was defeated. Yep. And so we're not talking about that. We just kind of wanted to know, the board wanted to know, is it even viable? Is it a possibility? So they went out and
the soccer complex thing, by the way, was just to clarify for folks, was not it wasn't a city of Osage Beach initiated thing. Now the idea was that it may end up having been in the city of Osage Beach, but it was initiated by the Tri-County Lodging Association and the CVB kind of working together on that, and they had proposed a increase in the lodging tax. That's background, but just you referenced that. That was not. That wasn't a city of Osage Beach thing.
Right. No.
Although it may have been in the city, but what you're saying is the city wants to go, is this even a viable thing ever?
Exactly.
Or in the foreseeable future.
Right. And does it make sense? I mean, and basically they hired Victus, I think is the name of the company, and there's a two-phase. First one, going by memory, about $35,000. Second phase, $28,000. But the board was real insistent that whoever we had do this study, they're not also an organization that will do the work. And a lot of times you'll bring in a third party and they'll say, you need to do this, and we think you should spend this amount of money. And by the way, we do that work.
Right.
So they were not that company at all. They approved the first of two phases. Ironically enough, just at last night's meeting, they approved the second phase. Okay. So the first phase came back and said, yes, it does make sense. This would be great for the Osage Beach and for the lake as a whole. It would be revenue generating. And not that the city would pay for it necessarily, but it gives the city the ammunition to go out to a developer and say, hey, we've got this study, and it says that if you bring that project here, it'll be profitable and we could do this. Well, the second phase is, where in the city of Osage Beach could it be? So now they'll come back down and they'll take a look at different areas. There's several different properties, but the goal is basically to find out, and it's expensive, but you can literally have it ready to go to a developer and say, hey, here's what we can do. This study says it's going to be profitable. We think it'll be good, but now we have the expertise backing to say it would be good. And by the way, we have these three locations to make it work, and you can sell the project and have them do it without the taxpayers paying for it.
Okay, a couple devil's advocate questions on that one.
Yeah.
One is, it still feels like to me that a company like Victus, who you guys used, has a kind of pressure to come back if they know that the answer you're hoping for is yeah, and it would be great. It feels like if I'm them, I mean, I would want to do it with integrity, but I'm just saying there does feel like there's an invisible pressure to come back and go, yeah, sure enough, turns out you paid us $35,000 and you're right, you can do one and here's some numbers,
Yeah.
So I wonder, I mean, how much can you take that conclusion to the bank really? I guess ultimately a developer either likes it or doesn't like it.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It seems to me, I'm not saying that it's not viable. That's just an interesting process because it seems like what if they came back and went, nope, turns out city of Osage Beach would be a terrible location for a sports complex. We'd like our $35,000 now.
No, that's a good question, but maybe I didn't clarify enough. They're not saying if Osage Beach, they were saying where in Osage Beach. They already said Osage Beach would be great for a complex like this.
No, but wasn't the first phase was deciding whether or not it would be.
Right.
That's my point. Is just simply even in the first phase, there being a kind of pressure to go to come back with a yes.
Yeah.
In part, so you can get to do phase two.
No, I understand.
And also in part because you're getting paid
Yeah.
because the city is hoping the answer is yes. You know what
No,
I mean? So
I
how do you
understand.
how do you be careful with that kind of conclusion and not? Here's what's behind that question.
Yeah.
How do you take that conclusion and not end up doing something that is actually a bad decision, but you paid a company who kind of felt like they needed to find a way for the answer to be, yeah, it'd be a great decision. How do you protect the city's interests in that regard? You know what I mean?
No, I understand, but no, this is to answer your question is good question because it was brought up on the board last night too. I mean, we had only 4 board members, and one board member asked almost that identical question. I mean, could not we use that $28,000 someplace else in the city? Playing my own devil's advocate, you could say, yeah, okay, well, we're already into it for 35, so why don't we just do the 28? Right. But this company here, we did a lot of studying before we hired them, and they have a proven track record all over the United States. Okay. They're not out to screw over the city of Osage Beach for $28,000. Mm-hmm. They want to see this through. They have proven to us based on research that they provided other locations, as I believe Columbia was the closest one, where they came in and did the same process, came up with the same conclusions, and also there's been areas where they did not have a conclusion to move forward. So it's not just always...
Okay, they're not always yes men.
Correct. Okay. And they've done a very good job of resourcing different resources and coming up with them, and they just have a proven track record. And... yeah, they're not out to just get $70,000 from the city of Osage Beach and move on. They're out to make this successful, and they have the records to prove that they've done it in the past and they can do it here.
What was the impetus originally? Like, whose idea was it, or where did this conversation start? Like, you know what we ought to do is figure out.
Yeah.
How did that start?
It's been talked about for years. I mean, going back to, and then it was totally unrelated, but the soccer complex that could also be used. Personally, I hate to see that we are the number one lake destination in the United States. We don't have a boat show. Mm-hmm. I mean, we have on-the-water boat shows, and Big Thunder does a great. But as far as bringing in companies from all over the United States, and right now they got a boat show going in St. Charles. I was talking to somebody at the gym the other morning, and I said, "What are you doing the rest of the day?" "Oh, I got to go up to St. Charles and set up for the boat show." And I said,
"Going up tomorrow." Actually,
well, and I said, "Well, that's not till next week." He said, "Oh yeah, I mean, it's so big that they give them. This is your slot. You've got a week before to set up." Would that not be nice to have it here? Mm-hmm. And so we've talked about that. And so finally, we have a new Eric Hundelt. He's our new marketing guy, and he did a lot of behind-the-scenes research and came to the board months ago and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And it's been talked about for years. And the way I look at it in the business world is, you go out and I could try to sell you, say, "Hey, Nathan, I got this great idea. I want you to spend $300 million in Osage Beach for this." And why do you think it's good? Well, because we'd have a boat show. I would much rather to go to Nathan and say, "Nathan, I think you should spend your $300,000 here. Here's a comprehensive study of, I not only have the location, but I can tell you what kind of generating money that would be. I can tell you what the long term, here's all the information." Right. And so that allows the city to go out and sell the program, and yeah, I'm excited about it.
Interesting. So then final question on that one, and then a couple more, and then
sure.
I won't take up any more of your time. On a complex like that, or whatever that ends up being proposed, or that this Victus group says this is kind of what we think would work well in terms of sports and configuration and the wear and all that stuff. Here are some ideas. How does the city imagine that playing out in terms of who funds it, who runs it, where the revenue sources, all those things, the financial picture there? That's not something the city says, and we think we'd build it. Or is that something the city's leaving on the table? How do you see that?
No, the city's not looking to build this.
Okay.
They're looking for somebody to come in and be able to sell the program to them.
Okay. And then, so the city doesn't necessarily even say, hey, we'd love if somebody built this and then contracted us to run it. Or because I know those were some of the things with the soccer complex prior. Yeah. There were all kinds of different possibilities about, well, this group builds it, this group runs it. So what the city's looking for in this is, let's have a study, which again, I mean, a developer would just do this study if they wanted to do it. But your point is, the city said, let's have this study in hand and go to some developers and say, hey,
exactly.
Look, we've got this. Yeah. You should consider it.
Well, I mean, a little different. I guess my first thought went to the Oasis. I mean, they're coming in here. We hope they'll hire a lot of local people to work there. Yeah. But it's not going to be a city employee behind the counter taking the tickets, or it's we would love to see them come in and bring more residents down, or more tourists down here, and hope they hire locals to work there. But it'd be on the developer.
Good. Okay, well, this is the last question, really. Like, this is kind of a two-part, longer question. So it may take a minute to say and to answer. But
I'll get a drink.
Yes. This is one I've been thinking about a lot lately. Some podcasts I listen to have got me thinking about it, and some things you and I have discussed over the past few years in terms of growth. So the question is all growth always good? What's the line? This one of the terrible Star Wars movies. They say only a Sith speaks in absolutes, or something like this. I hate that line. But it's easy to say no. Of course, not all growth is always good, always. Yeah. But I think that sometimes that assumption does lie behind certain moves that city leaders will take, and I'm not saying necessarily that's you or not. This is part of my question, because part of me wants to say that, growth generally is good because that means more economic opportunity, more people make better money, more, right? And now, while this is unlikely to happen, I think at least for a while, let's just say that for some reason, Osage Beach just blows up and becomes like Springfield, but on a body of water, like in terms of size and, downtown and all these things. The question is that, or would that be a good thing? We talk a lot about, and you actually told me this term, that a lot of times folks want to come to the lake and close the door behind them because they want it to stay exactly the way it was right when they got here. I think that that's a universal experience, or pretty broadly, people feel that. I love how this place is now, or how I remember it being, or something. And that makes some people averse to the idea of wanting things to grow. But then people on the other side of it who have businesses to run, or have kids, that I would love for there to be opportunity around here for them. I want to see some growth. But then I ask myself this question I just asked, which is, what kind of growth is good and what kind of growth do I not want to see? And really what's behind that question is, what are the principles that city leaders, planners, mayors, developers, all those people who work together, what are the principles they have as a city grows and develops and becomes something? Because cities have a unique character to them, right? Communities have a unique character to them. And I don't know that I think it is always good for them to just change into something else, right? So that's like 8 questions wrapped into one. So you can answer one or all or none or something. But I'm just trying to put some of those thoughts that I've been having out there and see what you think about that. What are the things that are operating in the background for you about, is growth always good, or what kind of growth is good, or what's your idealized form of this community, midterm, long term, all that?
All right, so
that's a lot.
Nope, that's fine. No, and before we start, I normally in board meetings, talking to people, I'll write down questions, when they're talking. Well, I don't have my pad, so I'll try to remember most I can here. First thing I'll start off with is, and if you've ever read the book on the history of the Lake of the Ozarks, how it started. I mean, you can go back 100 plus years, and the same thing was said back when they decided to dam up this area. And you had people that were livid that they were going to change the landscape. My gosh, look, it's beautiful. I mean, we live right here in the Lake of the Ozarks, or not Lake of the Ozarks.
The Osage River Valley.
Osage River Valley. And can you believe some people are going to want to change what we're doing and make a lake out of this? And how history can repeat itself. I've had other people with the Oasis project that were just, I cannot believe that they would do that. And I live right across from the Oasis, and I got rid of all of those trees. And they were friends. I politely said, "How old's your condo?" About 10 years. Do you know what your condo looked like before they tore down all those trees? Is growth always good? No. Will we ever become a Springfield? No. And the main reason is because we don't have that much property left. We only have so many. If you take the outer, if you took a line around the city of Osage Beach, there's not a lot of property left. In order to get more property, we'd have to annex people in. We need to continue to grow, and I don't see, other than a couple of small spots, possibilities. So no, we'll never become a Springfield because we just don't have the land to do it, and we don't have the ability to continue to grow. And the other thing you're talking about too is do we want to continue to grow? COVID, we could debate that another time, but COVID was very good for people coming to Lake of the Ozarks. If you remember, they called us, the spreaders and the TMZ, and all of a sudden, and I used to say this for years, that we went from, I don't know, depending on who you talk to, 2 or 3 million visitors a year to 8 or 9 million visitors a year that came down during the COVID because they weren't loading the kids up in the airport and going off to Florida, California. They were getting in a minivan and driving 2 states over and enjoying the lake. And then they got here and they loved it. And then they're like, well, we want to come back. And then they would come back and, well, all right, well, you boated one day and you did your putt-putt golf and your stuff, and then what do you do? And so people started coming here and wanting to come here more. And then the business people are going, hey, we have an opportunity here to become year-round. We're not just, Labor Day to Memorial Day. Right. And so you build it, they will come. And then all of a sudden they're saying, all right, we need more family-friendly things. And this is when I became mayor 4 years ago. I'm like, all right, we need not just for tourists, but locals. And so now we're becoming a year-round destination. And yeah, there could be an argument that, I missed the quiet Lake of the Ozarks. Well, we've not had a quiet Osage Beach for quite a while. People are coming down here. Now they want to do things. And now they need a place to live, and now they need a place to work. And when we do become year-round, which I think we really will soon, they're going to want to have things to do during the off-season, January and February. All right, well, where am I going to go eat? You got your few local places, but we're going to turn it into a place where there's something to do year-round. And when the Marriott opens up and people come down, and I think they said they already have like 15,000 rooms booked for 10 years out.
Yeah, I've heard he has a ton of convention business booked for
And
years.
The water park there's a underground tunnel from the Marriott to this indoor water park, and January and February people are going to come down here. So will we become a Springfield? No. Could we become more of a Branson? Possibly. But again, Branson had the growth to move and get bigger, and we really don't. So another thing that I'm proud of as mayor and having the board I have is that we do a really good job of making sure that the infrastructure can handle the growth that's coming in. When our sewage system was so bad, the first thought people had was, well, how can we handle all this growth and we can't handle our current sewage smell? Sure. Well, it was never a matter of capacity. It was a matter of moving things the best way, and we got a handle on that. I'm on the joint sewer board with the City Lake of the Ozarks, and part of that is the capacity of the treatment plant. And we're finding now that as things progress and things get better, they can process things even better. So our sewage treatment plant is 10, 15 years before we even think about another one. And it's time to start thinking about it. But even in July, we're still at 50% capacity. I found out an interesting statistic the other day, too, and it's hard for people to understand. Our water usage has gone down as our population continues to rise.
Why is that?
It's because of you take a look at the toilets, you take a look at the sinks, and they're all, they save money. As a joint sewer board, we were looking at, all right, the water up. Population was going up, and then all of a sudden the population kept going up, but the water usage went down. Is because things are becoming more efficient, and so we have the capacity to grow. One thing we do, even with the roads, one of the things people will say about the Oasis, how are we going to handle the influx of people? Well, how did we handle it during COVID? Yeah, there may have been some lines, but you're talking about maybe the first year of the Oasis, 500,000 people more. During COVID, you had about 3 times more.
Sure.
And we handled it. And they do a really good job of doing road studies and market studies. And can the road handle it? And we also do a pretty good job of telling the developer, you can do this. We can handle the capacity, but you're going to need to spend the road on money on an extra road or sidewalk and so forth. So as we continue to grow, we're doing it in a very manageable way, and we're doing a lot of research behind that growth. And so I think we're going to continue to grow at a nice, steady state and not bite off more than we can chew.
Interesting. Okay. I feel like that gets at that question.
Good.
Well, yeah.
Good.
And again, I think for me, it's still something I'm just thinking on. On how do you think about a future for the community? So
well, and I say too, I've kind of coined the phrase that Vegas started with a single casino, and it kept growing, and people fed off that, and I think you'll see here at Lake of the Ozarks. Even, if you have a business that you think competes with a business that's coming in, just sheer number of people alone, or the flow over from that traffic is going to go to your local business as well. And so I think we had 2 or 3 years after COVID of going back to COVID numbers. We got pretty comfortable as a business owner with COVID numbers.
Right.
And then people left and started visiting the rest of the United States. Right. And as a business owner, what's going on? Well, we're still about 219 numbers, but we're going to steadily see those get higher and higher and higher. And as that does get higher, it's going to make better jobs. It's going to create more money, and it's going to actually make home values go up even more. So I think we're going to see nice, steady growth, and the city does a nice job of making sure that it is steady.
Good. Well, that's very optimistic.
Yeah,
outlook.
I think so. Well, and
stay tuned.
Well, and yeah, can something throw a wrench in that? And you're a book reader? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, I quoted it on the dais the other day.
I read that.
Yeah, it's basically about getting the right people on the bus and getting the wrong people off the bus. And if you have the right people on the bus and you have to make an unexpected turn or deviate from your path, you can still manage it because you have the right people on the bus. And that's, I think, where we are right now and where we're going is we're going in the right direction. We got the right temperament on the board, and we have the right personalities, and we're going in the right direction. And I think we can handle a deviation or unexpected turn because of that.
Interesting. Well, we will be following all the twists and turns as we can at Lake Expo. So, folks, stay tuned because there's lots of news happening, man, on the outlet mall front, and on the sports study front, and on new stuff at the parks, and probably more.
Well, yeah, and I mean this sincerely, transparency. My number, my email is on our website. I'll meet you for coffee, meet in your office, at your business, at my business. If you have a question, concern, if you don't like the direction we're going, let me know.
Okay. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. My pleasure. All right.
Thank you guys, everybody, for tuning in. This has been our Take on the Lake. If you would do this for us, go subscribe to the show. Follow us on Facebook. Share the show. We share little clips of it on Facebook as well, hoping to promote it. And I've gotten some really awesome feedback, even just at the Camdenton Chamber Business Expo. I met a lot of you guys at the Overland Park Boat Show. I met folks that have really had very kind words about the show and have enjoyed that. So I appreciate you guys more than you know. The folks who are listening, who are encouraging, or who have constructive, I got some good constructive feedback as well. So I'll take anything on that. One last shout out. I forgot to do this at the beginning. I'll do it at the beginning next episode too. But my awesome new acoustic panel wood wall back here. Thanks and shout out to Lake Flooring and Finishes for that. They made that look really great. It actually helped my sound situation a lot in here. Maybe even helped the lighting. I don't know. Good. We got some things figured out. So I'm happy about that as well. So thanks to the Lake Flooring and Finishes guys for getting that done really quickly. Anyways, if you watch the video, you can see it. If you're listening, maybe you can hear it. Actually, you might be able to hear the difference. That's all I got. This has been our Take on the Lake. Stay anchored, stay curious, and we'll see you soon.